Good evening, everybody. I hope you're well. Welcome to our Whispering Bobcast. This is episode number 4. I'm here in the Under the Apple Tree studio. My son Miles is at the mixing desk. We've also got the Northern Cowboys with their hands on all the mixing buttons, and we're here to bring you some fantastic music and great conversation during the next hour and a half. Here is what we've got coming up.
Then I'll give you my Vincent to
It is a fabulous lineup tonight. My friend Alex Bramer is on the line as well. And between us, he and I will be taking a bit of a dive into my playlists and talking about one or two of the programs that I've done through the years, the makeup of the shows and the music and everything else. And we also have a competition winner to pick. We set you the task during the last 7 days of creating a playlist based on radio songs, a top 10, and we'll be choosing the winner of that competition in a few minutes' time. Meanwhile, though, to start our program tonight, one of my great friends, actually somebody that I've known for many, many years, we have, as you'll discover during our conversation this evening, a lot in common. Richard Thompson has just released this memoir, and that'll form the basis of our conversation this evening because it touches on his early days in London in 1967, the formation of the band Fairport Convention, and his early days in the middle of what was known as the counterculture. In fact, this little trail here will tell you a little bit more about the book. And Richard Thompson joins us on the Bobcast this evening. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Bob. Lovely to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I've been enjoying your book so much, and I've discovered that we have a number of parallels between us. Not least of which, you know, kind of our upbringing, the time of it. I'm a little bit older than you are, but we were obviously loving the same music, the arrival of rock and roll and skiffle and those great artists, Eddie Cochran, Buddy Holly and the others. But we were also, both of us, probably in what was quite a patriarchal situation. My dad was in the police force and yours was too.
Wow, that's amazing. Interesting. Gosh.
Because it's
fascinating.
The reason I'm saying that is that the rock and roll life, if you like, that those records represented, certainly to me at the time, was very different, very glamorously different from the life I was living in Northampton, you know, as a 12-year-old. So was it kind of the same with you, that kind of feeling of revelation?
Well, yes, absolutely. Rock and roll really seemed to be, a voice calling to my generation. So I had a big sister who was buying all the rock and roll records, which was fantastic. So I got to hear Eddie and Buddy and Jerry Lee and Elvis. through the bedroom wall. But it was different from your parents' music. It wasn't the same as Glenn Miller or Paul Carr and Teddy Johnson or whatever. It was something that really spoke to our generation, and it spoke of rebellion. It spoke of a generational watershed, a real difference, and it spoke about an enviable lifestyle as well. I think American songs were about cars, soda shops, and this sort of a very idyllic teenage lifestyle. And the Americans could actually afford to have it, whereas Britain was a bit impoverished after the war. So we kind of looked on enviously and listened enviously to that whole lifestyle being sung at us. And it wasn't really till the 60s that we kind of felt a sense of freedom and earning power, and then we had the Beatles and Gene Shrimpton and Carnaby Street and all that sort of stuff, and we actually started to enjoy ourselves.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's where the book begins to kind of align, isn't it? Because, I arrived in London in 1966, by which time what was known at that time as the counterculture had really begun to, it felt like London was a cascade of color, and in the Arts Laboratory, UFO, the happenings, liquid light shows, all of this kind of stuff. It really felt like London had come alive. It was the sort of center of the places to be.
It really did feel like the center of teenage culture. The music, fashion, all that stuff was absolutely in London. It was the right place to be at that time. 66, absolutely. 66, 67, it was all happening. And then you had the musical sort of psychedelic explosion. All the London underground bands were playing, and Fairport were very lucky to become a part of that scene. We were 16, 17, 18 years old, and suddenly we were getting booked alongside of Pink Floyd and the Crazy World of Arthur Brown, and all the fabulous people on that London scene.
Yes, I remember seeing you so many times around that time, and it's not an exaggeration to say that you did invent a new musical genre. I know very modestly, you say in your book that it wasn't kind of, yes, you did, and it wasn't necessarily life-changing or anything like that, but it kind of was. It was suddenly, I think anyway, the forerunner of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. We saw then, didn't we, in the late 60s and early 70s, the arrival of the singer-songwriter. And, I really think that Fairport laid the groundwork for a lot of all of that. I really do. In addition, obviously, to inventing this new music, which was called folk rock.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't give Fairport credit for anything, transatlantic. Really, I think I think we look to the Byrds as being a sort of signpost. Mr. Tambourine Band by the Byrds. Here was folk rock, real folk rock. Here was intelligent lyrics suddenly in pop music, and for us this was a fantastic thing, because we were a band that loved lyrics, and to hear you hear that sort of poetry and intensity coming into pop music, into the charts. I think Mr. Tambourine Man was a top 10 record in the UK and the US. To hear that degree of intelligence in popular music was an absolute revelation. And music changed from that point onwards. And Fairport were always interested in lyrics. We love Phil Oakes, we love Richard Farina, we love Joni Mitchell, and in our early days we covered their songs. And as we began to write, they became our inspiration as writers. I think Fairport were definitely part of the beginning of that scene. And we were, I think, proud to be a participating part of folk rock, if you like.
And of course, the music did take you over to America, Richard. And looking at, there are some really lovely and very endearing stories about, in particular, there's one when you were in Los Angeles. I think it must have been '69, and you were playing the Troubadour. And you're very so warm towards Linda Ronstadt, as so many people are, that you met at the Troubadour in LA. And at that particular time, that square mile of Los Angeles, it remained so also well into the 70s, with the venues that were clustered together there, the Roxy and the Rainbow Bar and Grill, the Troubadour. There was the Whiskey A Go Go, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And in the middle of it all, the Continental Hyatt House, the hotel where all the rock and roll bands stayed.
Yeah. Well, we used to say the Tropicana, which is a bit funkier, Tropicana Motel, which had a great coffee shop here, had Duke's coffee shop, where you'd run into all the bands there in the morning. But it was an extraordinary place, and the Troubadour was probably, the kind of folk rock place. You'd run into Gene Clark, propping up the bar there. So singer from Steppenwolf, I forgot his name. Escapes me.
Oh,
anyway,
gosh,
but he was a regular there as well. And Linda Ronstadt was part of that scene. Yeah. Peter Wolf, right?
Peter Wolf, very good.
Peter Wolf.
Something Wolf.
Linda,
if you want to tweet us, sorry, Richard, I was just going to say, people know who we're talking about and we can't remember. At Whispering Bob is my Twitter handle. Same on Instagram, actually. But tweet us at Whispering Bob and tell us. The lead singer of Steppenwolf, and they did Born to Be Wild and Magic Carpet Ride and all of those.
Yeah, he was one of the early kind of Jim Morrison style frontmen. I don't know who came first, actually, if it was him or Jim Morrison, but the kind of the West Coast very posy kind of guy who stands at the front of the band and declaims. But anyway, the Troubadour was a serious scene, and we made lots of friends there at the time.
Yeah, I'm going to sort of jump ahead of the book now, because the book takes us to 1975, which obviously implies that you'll be writing more as you go through your life, Richard. But just I'm going to jump to what I think was a sort of transitional, sort of pivotal record for you, put it that way, and that was Rumour and Sigh. I always still think back to that record as being you were on a big major label. It was Capitol, wasn't it? And you were spending more and more time doing more and more big gigs in the States, as well as doing so well here. And I thought Rumour and Sigh was a really important album for you in the middle of your career. Do you think I'm right about that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a good record. I think there's good songs on it for the most part. And but being on a major label, that this was the kind of thing that they said that they were interested in. The kind of record they wanted from me. And Mitchell Farim produced it, who did the Crowded House records, among other things. And we sort of had hopes for it. Actually, it sold a lot, but I think in record company terms at that time, it was just a blip, really. It's probably my biggest selling record, and yet it hardly registered in the accounts department at Capitol Records. I think at that point I thought, well, perhaps I'm slightly aiming for the wrong kind of audience, but perhaps I need to just really concentrate on being a live act. Whatever radio is doesn't seem to like me too much. So plus in Rumour and Sigh, we did a rock video, which cost probably the same as it cost to record the record. As things did in those days, but they had to do one, like they had to do one for every artist. So we had this whole, elaborate thing going on, crazy, to me a waste of money, actually, because it got played at 3 a.m. on MTV. And I thought, well, what's the point of that, really? So yeah, it's it was I think it was a good record, but you know, I just I look back fondly on the songs, and I still sing some of those songs, and I think that's about
Yeah,
the you know the best tribute I can pay to them.
yeah. Yes. There was also that amazing cover that you did of the Britney Spears song a few years
Yeah.
later. It's suddenly come into my head for some reason. But so I'm just going to conclude, Richard, if I may, with a
Sure.
couple of quotes from your book, because I think as we get towards the end, and you're reflecting back, and you'd say, do I think Fairport was an important band? Well, really, we really did invent a genre of music, and not many can say that. We rattled a few windows without actually blowing the house down. Like Fairport, like so many of my contemporaries, I don't know when to stop. And hooray for that. There are still mortgages to be paid off and bills piling up, but more motivational than that, there's still an audience. It may be 20,000 at a festival, 1,000 in a theater, or 10 in a retirement home, but the desire to communicate from my heart to their hearts is the strongest pull and the sweetest feeling. Now, in those words, Richard, I think you've absolutely brilliantly summed up, well, I mean, certainly the way I feel about continuing in the industry at age 75. And I'm sure you speak there in your own way for many, many musicians who feel that magic the way that you do.
I hope so. For me, you know, playing live is just the best thing in the world. You know, just that thing of playing to a live audience is so fantastic. And you know, I've missed it. I'm sure all the other musicians I know have missed it really badly. And we can't wait to get back out there and play for people. And so some of the people I know also can't wait to get out and be in the audience again. So hooray for that! Let's look forward to a few festivals this summer, and a few indoor events as well coming up in the autumn, and a very full calendar for me next year. Everything from this year got shoved into next year, so that's like a double workload next year. But that'll be just fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure to see you. It always is, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Bob. Thank you.
as I say, the book has been published for a little while now. Richard Thompson, Beeswing, Fairport, Folk Rock, and Finding My Voice, 1967 to 1975. And let's just have another look at the trailer for the book. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks so much.
Great stuff with Richard Thompson. And somebody who I know admires Richard very much coming up now, because John Smith is going to play a couple of songs for us. We'll have a little chat as well in a moment or two. He's put out a quite wonderful new album, and we'll be discussing that in a moment. I know people like John Martin and Bert Jansch and Davy Graham are mentors of his. So I'd like to introduce you now, live in Sheffield, to John Smith.
How come you haven't left me? Why'd you never let me go? When I could feel you yearning for the side I never showed. You always say there's time to learn, so many corners yet to turn, raging and hurting. Am I deserving of your love? Yeah. Crashing and burning. Am I deserving of your love? The years are passing quicker, and my days are twice as long. Yeah. I should have settled down by now. Thought the anger would be gone. You always say there's time to grow. So many things that I don't know. Yes, and I insist I know my mind is, honey, I'm hanging on for dear life. Raging and hurting. Am I deserving of your love? Yeah. Crashing and burning. Am I deserving of your love? Raging and hurting. Am I deserving of your love? Yeah. Crashing and burning. Am I deserving of your love? Yeah. Raging and hurting. Am I deserving of your love? Yeah. Crashing and burning. I am deserving of your love. Yeah, 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 yeah. Deserving of your love. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow, that was spectacular. It's John Smith with us, and a song there from John's new album, The Fray. I'm thinking you're getting your headphones on so you can hear me, John. Are you,
Yeah, my
you all,
glasses so I
you all
can
up to
see you.
speed? And your glasses so you can see me. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's quite an accompaniment you have there. It's great to see your backing musicians.
Yeah, I've got the wonderful Lauren Housley here on vocals, and Thomas Dibb on the guitar, and vocals as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Because,
it's
I
the
mean,
first gig in a while, so I thought I'd bring a band.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, this is one of the characteristics of the album is some of the wonderful people that you have on it. I mean, I was just looking at the list here now. The Milk Carton Kids, Sarah Jarosz, Lisa Hannigan, Bill Frisell. I mean, I'm particularly a big fan of Sarah Jarosz in that way, in terms of the way you made the album. Were you just sort of weaving them in as you went along? How did it happen?
Well, I wrote the songs, and I felt that I wanted to ideally go to Los Angeles or to Nashville to make the record. And, you know, it was just so far removed from what was possible that I thought, well, maybe there's a way that we can have them record and play on the record. I hadn't seen any examples of people recording remotely, you know, and it felt like a big risk, but actually, you know, everyone involved are just, you know, they're great players and I trust them. And so when it came to it, you know, I sent them the songs as we were going. You know, we recorded in real world studios, and I recorded the bones of the record in the first 2 days, and I sent out like rough mixes to everyone involved, and they recorded their parts in their home setups or in local studios and sent them over. And so it was happening kind of on the fly, as it would in an ordinary studio session. And so when Sarah in particular sent her vocals on that track, Deserving, I was hearing them back, and it was as exciting as it would be as if she was, you know, in the recording booth next door. So when I heard what she had recorded, I thought, oh man, you know, I need to put some slide guitar under that to kind of do it justice, because it's so, you know, it's transcendent. So I would, you know, then I would go away and I would record other parts and arrange the songs around what my contributors were giving me, as I would, you know, in a live recording session. So the whole thing felt, it had this intimacy to it that kind of, it took us all by surprise, you know.
And the thing about that is, with that process, John, you can be very considered, can't you? Because as well as being inspired, you've got time to think about the way you're being inspired and what to put around that voice.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which is I mean, that's kind of the joy of making records, you know, kind of building something up and taking things away and adding more, taking more away, and chipping away until you've got the right sound, you know. And I was just fortunate that everyone sent me, you know, such beautiful music. Bill Frisell sent me about 8 different takes of the song, and I had this evening where I was listening to, you know, my guitar hero, Bill Frisell, play my song in all these different ways, and I had to choose. I had the agony of choosing which iteration of Bill I wanted on the song. It was amazing. It was one of the nicest evenings of my life. Yeah.
And of course, Sam Lakeman produced, and again, how did that work? Because we're talking a lot of this work through lockdown, and so what sort of challenges were there in that respect?
Well, yeah, I mean, Sam he's such a safe pair of hands, and I hadn't produced one of my own records since Great Lakes, and he'd produced Headlong and Hummingbird, so we decided we would co-produce this one. And he came in with this idea of how it should sound. And, you know, we did the safe thing of quarantining first and making sure we were healthy, and then getting together and forming a bubble, all that stuff. So it all felt responsible, you know. When Sam starts setting up mics, he has already got an idea of how he wants it to sound. He just kind of puts his head in front of your guitar and goes, right, that goes there, play a song. And you play it and it sounds great. And I was kind of handling the remote contributions. He was kind of sticking it all together. You know, we were working very fast and instinctively. The pre-production was really just me sending him demos and him saying, don't like that one. I like that one. Don't like that one. You know. And we're pretty good with each other. You know, he can say, no, that's terrible. And I'll go, oh, right, well, it must be terrible. And vice versa. If he suggests something and I say, no, that's not going to work, he'll go, oh, right, okay. You know, we're pretty, we're kind with each other, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, as we heard with the first song, I mean, Richard Thompson and I were just talking, weren't we, about the whole kind of culture scene in London in the mid 1960s, and part of that was that fabulous folk music movement that had as part of it people like John Martin, Bert Jansch, John Remborn, Al Stewart, and Davy Graham. And you know, you can hear in your music, John, how much inspired you are by the music of that time.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I grew up with that music. You know, when I turned 16, my dad gave me Bert and John on a cassette, and it changed my life. It completely changed the way I thought about music, about the way I thought about the guitar, and I started trying to figure out what they were doing. And then I realized it was in Dadgad, you know, this folk guitar tuning that Davy Graham brought back from Morocco, and that Bert Jansch and Big John Remborn, they took that on and they changed music. Richard Thompson, you know, all that stuff. It comes from this. There's a rich seam of British music that has so much to do with the acoustic guitar and the way it's detuned. You know, I heard Nick Drake, and it just opened the doors in my head, and I feel very inspired by and somehow connected to that lineage. I was very fortunate early in my career to be, you know, to have John Martin take me under his wing, and he took me on the road for a few years. And John Remborn was very kind to me, Davy Graham as well. You know, I was very fortunate. You know, I was in the right place at the right time. You know.
Well, it's great to hear the echoes of that music, I must say, in your music. And I'd love to hear some more now, John. So what is the next song going to be?
Well, the next song, I was going to play the title track from the record, Bob, which is called The Fray. And yeah, I'm going to have to switch guitars, so bear with me. And also, can I just say, I never thought I'd be going on after Richard Thompson. So thanks for that. Not nervous at all.
Brilliant. So just while John's changing guitar, there are lots of ways to get in touch with us, of course, but I suppose the quickest and most direct is my Twitter account, which is @WhisperingBob. And we set you a question a few minutes ago asking who was the lead singer of Steppenwolf, what was his name? And Miles, we've had loads and loads of answers to this. Well, the answer is the same, but we've had loads of people telling us it.
Yeah. Kudos to @Jeet Stivgor, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, on Twitter, who said John Kay was the singer, but I'm sure you know this.
But John, I'm hoping you're still there and you've managed to change guitar now.
All right.
Cool.
All right.
Yes, you are. Brilliant. Thank goodness for that. Okay, I'm going to give your tour dates out in a few moments, but let's have that final song meanwhile.
Strange faces flicker in the movies. Broken people fill my screen. I catch my reflection, it's just a trace of me before it disappears into the streets. I must have been a million different places. Well, the things that I've seen. Everyone knew me from my couch to Radio City, but I barely know the person that I've claimed to be. And it's up all night, down all day. I don't know where I'm headed, but it seems I know the way. I wait for the lights to fade out and walk into the fray. We all end up there anyway. I'm still looking for the kindness of strangers. It'll make you rich, won't cost a thing. Night wordlessly around these city scenes, reaching out for friendship and the goodness that it brings. It's up all night, down all day. Don't know where I'm headed, but it seems I know the way. Wait for the lights to fade out, walk into the fray. We all end up there anyway. Holding on to hope, I don't need a decent reason. It's nowhere disappears, sometimes it returns with every season. Oh, it's up all night, down all day. I don't know where I'm headed, but it seems I know the way. Wait for the lights to fade out and walk into the fray. We all end up there anyway. Yeah. We all end up there anyway. Yeah. We all end up there anyway. We all end up there anyway.
Just lovely. And thanks to Lauren and Tom also for accompanying John Smith. And I mentioned the fact that he's, it's incredible. And I'm so happy to announce that tours are starting again. And John's begins on Tuesday, September the 14th at the Globe in Cardiff. And from there, he goes to Bristol, Corsham, King's Place in London on the 17th, Brighton, Colchester, Birmingham, Leicester, Reading, Liverpool, Glasgow, Newcastle, York, and then the tour concludes in Manchester at the Stoller Hall on September the 30th. John Smith back on the road, and we're back live. We're here. There's still a tiny bit of light in the sky. I can see through there, Miles, but it's great that we are back live, and hopefully are just about to link up with Alex Bramer. Is that right? Is Alex on the line also now? Because we're just about to take a bit of a delve into my playlists. And of course, the gatekeeper of my playlists on my website is Alex Bramer. I'm glad you're there, Alex. Everything okay?
It is, Bob. I don't think BT keeps you hanging on this long. It was extraordinary, wasn't it? I'll tell you what, Bob, you've got some incredibly loyal fans out there following the chat in the Facebook chat and in the Roots Live chat. just incredibly patient people, just happy to wait until we sort it all out. And of course, this bit of the conversation, Bob, won't make any sense at all once it's all edited together and put out there to watch again. But there we are.
But there we are. But we are going to look at a playlist that features two of the guests on the show tonight, I think.
That's
Richard
right.
Thompson
Well,
and Kathleen.
That's right. It's as regular viewers now will know, we delve back into the archive past and see what we can dig out. And it didn't take very long to find a show that you put out on Radio 2 on October the 11th, 2003, one of the weekend shows, and you played both Kathleen Edwards and Richard Thompson on that show. Richard Thompson, you played Gethsemane, and Kathleen Edwards, you played a song called The 6 O'Clock News. And again, the archive database throws up some interesting information, Bob. Do you know how many times you've played Richard Thompson? I'm talking about solo now, not in bands and the duets and all the rest of it. How many times do you imagine you've played him solo on your shows?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I know it's a lot. I do know that
it is.
Yeah, because
what shall I tell you?
Alex and I had a go on, tell me.
I don't finish what you're saying. We have a delay. I'm sorry, Bob. I keep talking over you. Carry on, sir.
It's okay. No, we had a conversation earlier about Kathleen Edwards and the number of times that I've played back to me. And, I think that's about 17 or 18. But, I don't know about Richard. So how many is it?
Well, it's 130. Let me have a look. 139, which perhaps over the years may not seem much, but that places him in the top 20 of artists who you've played most often. And of course, we've touched on in the past a number of times how we'd like to improve the archive database online, make it more searchable, make it more interactive. And one of the bugbears at the moment that we're looking to fit, and there's no easy solution for this, Bob, is to make sure that we can connect up Richard Thompson with all the different manifestations of bands and duets that he's played with. And I've also mentioned before that there isn't really a satisfactory way of doing it that I've seen on any of the existing established services like Apple Music or Spotify. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, but I mean, stage by stage, we're developing the site, aren't we, to give it more and more layers of information and depth, frankly. I mean, it really is incredible now what the site gathers together under its umbrella.
You can get very lost in it, and occasionally I do. But what we really want to be able to do is ask these questions quickly. So, how many times have you played Kathleen Edwards? How many times have you played this song? How many times has Richard Thompson appeared on either a show or the Old Grey Whistle Test? We're getting there. We know where we want it to be, but what we want it to be is a decision for the ages. We want to improve on what's out there, because particularly music, just as in sport, I suppose, the data is everything, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I've had a look at this playlist, Alex, and it features a band that
somebody caught my eye, didn't there? Yeah.
Yes,
there it is.
Love.
There it is.
And Forever Changes. I've got the vinyl version of this as well because this actually is a very precious album for me because it was the album that John Peel gave to me the first time that I met him when I was writing for a magazine called Unit in 1967, which was edited by Tony Elliott, with whom I co-founded Time Out magazine. And Tony was looking for a sort of London correspondent for the magazine. This is, Richard and I were talking earlier about the amazing counterculture that existed in London at the time, but there was no sort of what's on magazine for that counterculture. So we invented one, and it was called Time Out. And the first edition was published in the summer of 1968. But just prior to that, I'd written a piece for Unit magazine about John Peel, which involved me going over to his place in Fulham, spending a couple of hours over there with him and Mark Bolan and recording an interview with him, which we published in the next edition of Unit magazine. And just as I was leaving, he gave me a copy of Forever Changes by Love as a sort of parting gift. And it's been just about my favorite album ever since.
Well, I'm intrigued. It jumped out at me, so I'm glad you picked up on that as well. I don't have any love, and I feel I have love in my heart, but I don't have any love for music, and I feel embarrassed to admit that, and I'm going to fix it before the evening's out. But that's the album to start with, is it?
Forever Changes is the one. Yes, it was
Forever
intriguing
Changes,
even
okay.
at the time. Yeah, Forever Changes.
Yes.
That's the one
Yeah.
that I would recommend. The other thing we've got to do in a few minutes, isn't it, Alex, is pick out this week's competition winner. And
Yes.
I'm thrilled that we've had so many entries. It's absolutely brilliant to see so many.
It is. I mean, these competitions take some thought. They do. I mean, the first competition was fairly straightforward. Just what's your ideal playlist? These ones are requiring some thought, and we've seen some really, really interesting entries.
Yes. The theme is radio this week, and Alex and I are going to reconvene in a few moments' time to go through some of the suggestions that we've had for radio songs and pick out a winner from all the entries that we've received.
Internet willing.
Meanwhile,
Internet willing.
Internet willing, yes. Fingers crossed. Meanwhile, though, we're going to travel across the Atlantic to Canada, because waiting for us there is one of my all-time favorite artists. I began to support her music at the release of her debut album, Failure, in 2003, since which time we've worked together on stages in various places, in Toronto, in London, in Trafalgar Square. But she dropped out of the music industry in 2013 to come back again with a brand new album, which is absolutely stunning. And before we talk about that, we're going to see Kathleen perform one of the songs from it. So this is the absolutely wonderful Kathleen Edwards.
playing the horseshoe, and I was drinking too much whiskey. You always knew how to set me straight, even though I didn't want to hear it. In life, I'll always be thankful for it. Yeah, I will always be thankful for it. And I will always be thankful for it. Oh, I will always be thankful for it.
It's just beautiful, isn't it? It really is. The song is called Glenfern, and it's the opening track on Kathleen's most recent album, Total Freedom. And what a beautiful album this is, Kathleen. Congratulations. The sound is so lovely, isn't it? Obviously we get a taste of it there. Who have you got playing with you on stage in the film?
Well, for that session, it's been Peter Von Alten on the drums, and he was just a really key component in this whole album being made. He actually played on my first record, Failure, and it was so great to have him come back into the fray because I was living back in Ottawa where he lives, and so he played drums on the entire record and, of course, on that session. John Hines on bass, another Ottawa musician, and then Jim Bryson, of course, who co-produced the record with me and played keyboards, and then Blair Hogan is on electric guitar as well. Another local guy who, given the circumstances of being limited in travel, has filled in for other guitar players of mine, which has been really great. And he plays beautifully.
Of course, you mentioning Failure there, Kathleen, it brings back to me such wonderful memories of the time that I first started playing you on the radio and you and I first met. And Jim had that, Jim Bryson had that amazing band called The Occasionals that I played. What was it? Last Cigarette, I think, was the track that I majored on the radio in those days. And I remember you coming over to play one of the Canada Day concerts in Trafalgar Square. Do you remember that?
I totally remember that. It was an incredible year, and you know, those years flew by so quickly. I mean, we felt like we were running a marathon the whole time. And what has been so fun is to reminisce, especially, you know, even just talking to you about things that I've done that, you know, at the time you're kind of just in survival mode and you want to play a great show every night. And then you look back and you're like, I played Trafalgar Square on Canada Day. That's an extraordinary experience. It's so wild.
Yeah. Well, I was the compere that day, and I just completed a two-part documentary for Radio 2 called The Maple Leaf Revolution, which was a program about the incredible Canadian music scene, and in particular, all the riches around Toronto and some of those great bands that I was playing on the radio at the time. And then, of course, there was this link between London and Toronto, London and Canada, and a number of musicians came over to play. I think it was more than 1 year, wasn't it? It lasted through a period of time, and I was the compere of a run of them, and I just thought it was an amazing, because I love the Canadian music scene, Kathleen. And is it, I mean, I haven't been over to Toronto for a while. Is it as vibrant as it always has been?
I think it is incredibly, you know, I still think I'm 25, but I'm not. And there are a lot of people who were my age when my first record came out, you know, hitting the streets in Toronto and playing in the clubs there and sort of developing their thing. And I'm kind of busy running a cafe, so some days I don't really feel like I know what's going on.
Because you did take a break anyway, didn't you? You wanted to get away from the music industry for a while.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it's almost a bit unfair to kind of reminisce of the reasons I took a break, because all of the good things have brought me back to it. But it was a very difficult time at the end of my last record that I put out, and I put it out in 2012. I put out a record called Voyager in 2012. And I went through a really, really tough couple of years where I was dealing with things like depression, and obviously I was burned out. And I think I was also chasing something in this, sort of, whether it's ego or a certain level of success within the music business or as a performer, where I just was really down on where I had gotten to after all these years of slugging it out on the road. And I just had lost perspective. So I moved home, and I really did take a pretty hard break for, about 2013, 2014. I didn't really pick up a guitar for years. And then I had a wonderful sort of reintroduction to some musicians who I didn't know in Nashville. And it just was a sort of spontaneous trip down there to work with an artist named Maren Morris. And I just came home after those few days, like I felt like someone had, just shaken me out of a deep sleep and said, "There you are. Come on, let's go." And I just felt like I wanted to make a record again.
So what happened with Maren? Did she just call you?
Yeah, it was really kind of as simple as that. Her manager called mine and said, Maren is a big Kathleen Edwards fan, and we know she's not really doing anything. Would she still be interested in writing with Maren? She's making a record. And of course, Maren had this incredible first album that blew up, and she had a country hit, crossed over into pop, and I was flattered, and so I said yes. And it was, to be honest, like I'm sure anyone who started a startup business, I felt like it was going to be like a 5-day vacation from Coffee Land. So I said yes and jumped on a plane, and ended up being a really wonderful connection.
And that led to a co-write on the Girl album. That's actually what it was, wasn't it? Which track was it, Kathleen?
I think it might be one of the last songs on the record. It's called Good Woman, which, funny enough, was a song that I had worked on and written and sort of had in my vault right around the time that I quit, because I was heartbroken and I was just feeling so down. And it was a song that was really rooted in like a terrible, painful heartbreak. And it was actually a song in that was like, you've got the love of a good woman. What's wrong with you? Why don't you want me? And Maren ended up turning it into this song about true love, and sort of it gave it a whole new kind of context, which was really wonderful.
Yeah. But anyway, Nashville's got its own atmosphere and its own magic about it, isn't it? I mean, it's a musician's town. It's the town of the song, and you have to somehow pick up that energy, don't you, when you're there?
Yeah, it has the same energy that I feel that Toronto had when I was first starting. So around the time that I put out Failure, 2003, 2005, 6, 7, I really feel like that Americana, which funny enough is as sort of Canadiana as it is Americana for me. Bands like Blue Rodeo and Crash Vegas had a huge part in that sound in Toronto for the artists who evolved into a scene that is really predominantly now coming out of Nashville. And it's really fun to see sort of all of these artists who are incredibly inspired by the roots history of or aesthetic or songwriting end up moving from, New York, Nashville, New York and LA and Toronto and other parts of North America and even overseas, and kind of congregate in Nashville now. It's become this incredibly beautiful and authentic community. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's true. So, I mean, are you planning to work down there again?
I mean, I hope so. Canada, like truthfully, Canada's really handled COVID poorly, and I'm sure everyone who lives wherever they live probably feels that way. We're still dealing, I live in Quebec and in Ontario, and we still have a curfew to be at home. And in Ontario, we still have a stay-at-home order for only essential visits outside your home is what they're telling people to do. So I feel a little discouraged, to be honest, about seeing other people pick up and get going. And I feel sad to say that, I'm going to be doing that in the United States long before I'm going to be doing it in my own country. And I feel tremendously grateful that I have a career in the States and in the UK so that I can. So I'm hoping to pick up and get going.
Absolutely. Well, we can't wait to see you over here again, Kathleen. It's so great to see you today, I must say. I mean, I feel sort of very connected having been there right from the beginning with Fela, and it's, Back to Me is still one of my most played tracks. I just think that's such an incredible song. So to see you today and
Bob,
to see you looking so well and happy, it's terrific. I'm so pleased.
Oh, Bob, thank you. And honestly, you were such a huge part and are such a huge part of not just my career, but so many young sort of roots leaning artists who came out of Canada, the United States. And your name for me is just synonymous with like, oh, I'm going to have a chance to do something overseas. And it was always sort of in conjunction with, because of Bob Harris. So, there's a lot of people out there who owe you a great debt of gratitude for, exposing us to ears overseas. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. And we'd love to see the second song. So just talk us into it. Just tell us a little bit about this song.
Ashes to Ashes was actually one of the songs I wrote most quickly. I had lost an acquaintance of mine very suddenly to a heart attack, a guy who was only a few years older than me, and he was a regular customer of mine at Quitters. And I came home from his funeral feeling so incredibly devastated and powerless, and I couldn't imagine how powerless his own children and his wife must have felt to have gone through this sort of really tragic, abrupt end to his life. And I guess I just thought about how life happens in these incredible sort of cyclical ways. And, I really thought about what my funeral would be, which is that I didn't want it to be about God and about trying to make sense of something, but rather just letting it be that, life goes on after you die, and Ashes to Ashes is about, your spirit always staying with the people who loved you when you leave.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's so beautiful to see you. And this is Ashes to Ashes.
Ashes to ashes, I'm just dust. All the animals that I've loved will die someday, and so will I. I get scared to say goodbye. And ashes to ashes, I'm just mad that someone like you was taken like that. And no one in this room could
I read a great article about Kathleen earlier today, which had the headline, "Quitting was the best thing she ever did." And Quitters, of course, is the name of her restaurant and her coffee bar. And Ashes to Ashes is on the new album, which is called Total Freedom. And singing on that track on the album itself is Courtney Marie Andrews. And I noticed also that Kathleen thanks Daniel Tashian for just his influence and his good vibes and everything. And Daniel was the man who created the sound of Casey Musgrave's Golden Hour album. Well, I say he created it, obviously co-produced it with Casey, but he was in a band called the Silver Seas, who made a wonderful album about 10 years ago called Chateau Revenge. If you want to sort of delve back and find an album which is really, I tell you who really loves that album too, Danny Baker. And Miles, who's with me in the studio, used one of the songs from it as a part of a soundtrack of a film you made in Brazil, wasn't it, Miles? Which track did you use?
It was called Jane.
That's it.
Beautiful stuff. And yeah, if you do listen to that album, you can really hear how Casey kind of was influenced by Daniel being around Golden Hour, because a lot of the production is very similar and very gorgeous.
Yes.
And Jane is a wonderful track, so highly recommended.
Absolutely. So talking about delving into playlists and all that good stuff, we have one final thing to do, Alex, don't we? And that's to inform our winner tonight of the winner of the playlist competition. So we were asking, weren't we, for...
Sorry, we'll do our best, Bob. I got to tell you, that last song's left me and everybody in the chat room in pieces this evening. It's
Yes,
that was extraordinary. Yeah. We're just useless, but yes, let's try and do this sensibly. Over to you, Bob.
Yes. So we decided to set you the task of picking out 10 records that are about the radio. So obviously I published one of my playlists, which was a radio song special, which had things like Radio Gaga. And anyway, so we gave you sort of hints as to the kind of titles that we're after. And I must say, Alex, it's not just the number of entries that we've had, but the quality of the entries is just absolutely unbelievable.
People have really thought about it. There's some surprises, Bob. I mean, I was absolutely confident that Steely Dan FM would feature highly. It featured, but not crazy high. That Donald Fagen's Nightfly would be a strong contender across all the play. Didn't feature at all, not at all. Your followers, your listeners, Bob, they seem to like pop music. If the winning entry is anything to go by, and it largely is, it was heavy in pop. But it was all interesting. Yeah. Shall I announce the winner?
Yes, go on.
The winning entry. The winning entry was Beverly Bolton. We liked your entry very much, and it is heavy on pop.
Yeah, it is. But the thing that's interested me so much about so many of the entries, maybe not so much this week, but certainly in previous weeks, is the way that everybody's gone right across genres. And actually, I do think that this list does do that a bit, because it begins with the Buggles, Video Killed the Radio Star, then Darius Rucker, Radio, Donna Summer, On the Radio, Bon Jovi, The Radio Saved My Life Tonight, Play It Again by Luke Bryan. It's good to see country strongly recommended on this list. Robbie Williams and Radio, Hall & Oates Portable Radio, Charles Eston from the Nashville TV series with A Road and a Radio, Madonna, Turn Up the Radio, and inevitably Radio Gaga by Queen. And the only other thing I would say about this is, I was wondering if anybody would pick Rex Bob Lowenstein, amazing song by Mark Gimino, Rex Bob Lowenstein being the name of a DJ that is the central character of an incredible song. If you don't know that song, please just look it up now, download it. You will just be amazed by the observational brilliance and the depth of the lyrics. It's really, I always think when I listen to that song about a DJ called Roger Scott, partly because Roger used to play it so often, but also partly because it described what he was. And that's this guy like myself who would play anything back to back, following Madonna with George Jones or whatever it is. And so I always like it when these playlists do that. And we've got another competition for you for next week. Only this one, and I must admit, I've picked up off an idea that was going around mine and Danny Baker's Twitter account. And that was songs that mention artists in the lyrics. So let's say, for example, if you're a big country music fan, you will know Springsteen by Eric Church. So that obviously would be a strong contender for your list. But songs that mention artists in their lyrics. We'd like 10, please. And Alex, if you would describe how to submit the entries.
Well, very shortly after this podcast ends, before I finally get to bed, I will put the competition. I'll put the competition live. All you have to do is go to Bob's site, bobharris.org, navigate in the top menu to the Bobcast, and about 2/3 of the way down that page, you'll see a button to go and fill in your competition playlist entry.
And we'll be doing the draw for the winning playlist at around this time next week. And the prize is a nice one, Alex, isn't it?
It is. It is. What we do is the winning entrant will receive the playlist exactly like that, which is a fairly close approximation to the sort of playlist that you will have on your desk when you're giving an actual show, when you're doing your show on the radio. Bob, you'll autograph it for them and dedicate it, and we'll send it off to them. And what's rather nice is you'll see is that the winning entrant is listed as the producer on the show. So we're hoping that's a nice little thing to stick in a frame and on your wall.
And look, we've got some merch through. So I'm going to pop this in the envelope as well. Okay. Alex, thank you very much. And thanks to everyone, Miles Hay, who has stuck with us this evening.
Indeed, yes. Apologies again for the technical difficulties, everybody. It was one of those horrendous moments when you're doing a live show. Proves it is 100% live, though, here on the Bobcast. So thank you so much. We have had loads of comments towards the end of the show in the chat saying how much people are enjoying the show, and the little community that's building up gradually as we do these Whispering Podcasts every week. So thank you very much for sticking with us and for staying involved. Loads of people have been loving the music this week. And somebody actually, Bob, just said to just re-mention the song that you talked about, because she was off in the kitchen. I think it may have been Springsteen by Eric Church at that point.
And there was Rex Bob Lowenstein by Mark Gemino, which is on an album called Caught in the Act of Being Ourselves.
There you go. Yeah. Indeed. Yes, and I know Bob held up one of the postcards, which is the first bit of merch that we have in our stock right now. You can see some lovely close-ups of it on screen, and you can get involved. You can get some of these for yourself, along with the T-shirt and a mug. I've been seeing Eleanor in the chat, just informing you all that the T-shirts and mugs are indeed on their way. They're coming from Europe, so it's just taken a little bit more time than we were expecting for them to arrive, but they should be here in time for next week's show. And everybody who has already pledged and bought a package will be getting theirs sent out very, very soon. I, for one, am very excited to be donning a Whispering Podcast T-shirt and mug for next week's show. And if you'd like to as well, there's details of how to get involved on the watch page on Roots Live if you're watching right now. Any donation is greatly appreciated. Clearly, we need it to give BT a bit more of our money to increase our internet speeds, as shown by the show today. But yeah, any donation, anything you want to do, there's lots of packages, and you can get lots of rewards for being involved in this very first series of the Whispering Bobcast. Hopefully not the last. We've been seeing a lot of comments as well about people saying whether it will be available post-show on Spotify, etc., etc. And yes, it will be. We're sort of getting through the first series, and we're going to be doing a big best of highlights package. There's going to be the best moments and bits and pieces on Spotify and all those good streaming platforms, YouTube and that sort of stuff, once this series is wrapped up. But it's a little bit of an exclusive live kind of community that we've got going, and very much enjoying at the moment here on the Bobcast. So if you have been enjoying it, feel free to tell your friends, and recommend getting in touch with us and tuning into the show. By the way, if everybody wants to watch the show in its entirety without the technical difficulties interrupting us, you'll be able to do exactly that on this page for the next week, once Mark has fervently edited at his end. Big thank you to Mark and Tom and the Northern Cowboys in Sheffield for getting everything sorted, and for John Smith for being so patient and waiting to perform his second song so beautifully during the technical difficulties. But all in all, Bob, I'd say it was a great show. Some of the guests again tonight, absolutely world class.
And next week as well, John Hyatt and Jerry Douglas, Beth Nielsen Chapman, and I think we've got one other special guest as well, Miles.
Indeed, our very own Els Bailey from Bristol, who's
absolutely
sensational. She's just won Blues Artist of the Year at the UK Blues Awards, and she has an absolutely stellar band. So not one to be missed. She's going to be fantastic. She'll be in the studio in Sheffield with Mark and Tom performing once again next week.
Yeah. So thanks for watching us and staying with us this evening. And don't forget to follow me at Whispering Bob. I'll be putting up loads of information about the Bobcast between now and next Tuesday evening. So that's a great way to keep in touch. And we'll see you again this time next week. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.